Now, an ambitious project is underway to reconstruct and preserve the historic treasures destroyed in Iraq by jihadi militants in cyberspace. It's called Project Mosul. The initiative sees cyber-archaeologists working with volunteers to reconstruct the precious artefacts as digital 3D models, starting with the statues torn down in the Mosul Museum in February. Well, our science reporter Jonathan Webb has been looking at the results. First of all, how does this work?
Well, the process all begins with regular digital camera photographs that were taken of these relics before the destruction took place, and they may have been taken by tourists or other visitors to the museum. And the project was started by archaeologists who thought they could crowdsource the process of rebuilding some of this collection. And so they opened up a website and they've now had more than 700 of these photos. And then the work begins with those archaeologists and again some volunteers putting multiple regular images together to create a 3D model, and that's a technique called photogrammetry that's becoming quite popular for these sorts of projects.
Well, it's becoming quite necessary given what's going on in the Middle East at the moment, and we're all worried about what's about to happen in Palmyra, of course. What about effects in places like that? Are the photographs already in existence? Is there still the possibility, if these things are destroyed, that we could still not recreate but reimagine how they were?
Well, that's one of the powers of the technology that we have now, is that we can open up a call and crowdsource some of those images, even if we didn't get a chance to go and deliberately record a proper scan before a relic was destroyed. But the archaeologists who have done this work are quite keen that we become a bit more deliberate and proactive and go out and try and record proper scientific scans that are of an even higher quality of other resources that are under threat, whether that's from violence, as is the case in the Middle East, or from earthquakes, because of course other precious things were lost in Nepal in the recent earthquakes there.
The potential for technology like this would suggest that actually you could rebuild it. You could plug that into a 3D printer and see what the result is.
That's right. As soon as you have a 3D scan, you can use that file to create a 3D print. Obviously, you have to think carefully about ownership of relics if we start to physically reproduce them. But again, that's something that archaeologists are quite excited about, because then you can recreate some of that tactile experience of actually seeing the grooves and seeing things from different angles, and even potentially rebuild a site. And that, again, doesn't have to be if a site's been lost through violence or other means, but it might be that the original is too precious and too fragile. Some caves, for example, in France have been recreated above ground so that visitors can see ancient art without putting the original at risk. So there's all sorts of options.
There was worldwide shock at these images showing the destruction in Mosul. Your heart stops as you see it. In terms of attempts to protect this sort of archaeology, you've mentioned earthquakes, but the violence that we're seeing at the moment, there are teams, indeed there's a recent film about efforts in the Second World War to protect art and artifacts from war, and that still has to be the priority, to protect it, rather than to rely on photographs of it afterwards.
Obviously, yeah, we'd much prefer that this sort of digital reconstruction wasn't necessary, and that's something the archaeologists have been really clear about, and everyone was very fearful that we'd see similar destruction in Palmyra. I think that threat has passed for now, but it's still very much present. So we do wish that this work didn't have to be done, but if the works are lost, it's nice to know that in some form they can be there for future generations to see.
And anybody who's got a digital camera who's taking pictures like this, that information could be useful, is that right?
Could be very useful, yeah. Any sort of image can help the reconstruction take place. Some of the ones that are on the website for people to use to help with the reconstruction actually came from the footage of the destruction that we were just seeing. So some of those images have actually helped with, potentially some of the recreation work that's going on. So,
Jonathan Webb, they couldn't call you anything else really, could they? Thank you very much. Thanks.